Morena, everybody. Good morning. I'll call the meeting to order. I'll call the meeting to, oh gosh, the mum voice came out. Well, good morning, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to our Strategic Planning and Policy Committee meeting of 1st of April. Pinch and a punch for the first of the month, no returns. Before we go any further, could I please invite you, Bill, to open us with a karakia?
Ia makina ki uta, ia mātaratara ki tai. Ia ke ana te atakura i tio, i huka, i hau, ti hei Māori ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Bill. Right, we have an agenda before us, obviously, and before we go any further, I want to acknowledge we have Steph attending online. Nice to see you, Steph, but we have a full complement here, whole set. Nice to see everybody, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So no apologies. Disclosures of any members' interests, are there any? No?
No jokes today?
No jokes. It's, we don't do pranks. Roger. Microphone, sorry, Roger.
Whether it's appropriate at this time, but there were a few of us out at Mighty River on Saturday for the Māori Cup, and I'd just like to acknowledge what an incredible event, and obviously the impact that it has on Waipa in general, because of course Cambridge is not big enough to take everybody. And so it's a great event, and I'd just like to acknowledge Councillor Liz's work out at Mighty River, because events like that don't run as smoothly as they do without a whole team of effort. But what a fabulous, fabulous event. I just thought it was worthwhile registering that at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. It was indeed a wonderful week, actually, the whole week of racing and mascot dance-offs and all sorts of crazy kind of competitions. So yes, acknowledge
parade,
well made.
Parade on
parade
Sunday
too.
and everything as
Yeah.
well. So staggering.
Thank you. Point well made. Fabulous. Let's move on then. Disclosure of members' interests. We've decided there are none. Late items. I'm not aware of there being any. And confirmation of the order of meeting. I'm happy to move from the chair as it's not going to change. Marcus will second that for me. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Confirmation of minutes. We have two sets of minutes there. Do you want me to do them two separately or together?
Two resolutions.
We made two resolutions. Okay, so the first recommendation appears there on page 7 in respect to the 5th of February minutes. So
Move.
you'll move, Roger. Claire will second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. And then the second set, where am I going? Is on page 15. They appear there from 15 onwards. So the recommendation appears on page 14 in respect to the meeting held on the 24th of February. Do I have a mover? Mike will move, and Lou, can I invite you to second? Thank you. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Great stuff. So now on then to our first substantive item on our reasonably short agenda today. It's my great pleasure to invite Jo to the table to present her paper in respect to the 6-month reporting from our community boards. Obviously, it's wonderful to have the chairs and a deputy chair in the House, but the floor is yours, Jo.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So this report presents the 6-monthly reports of the community boards that they've prepared for you for your agenda today. So I'm not going to take up any more time, and we're going to start with the chair of the Te Murangeki Community Board, Ange Holtz, and then that will be followed by we've got Joe Davies-Colley and Elise Badger with the Cambridge Community Board. We'll follow after that. Ange?
Thanks, Jo.
Good morning, Ange. Nice to see you.
Morning. So Morena, Mayor Susan, councillors, Te Kanohi, staff and community. On behalf of the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board, thank you for the opportunity to speak to our report. I have 2 points I would like to raise. One, from the report, you will note we've highlighted that as a community board, we have identified conflict of interest, particularly related to perceived or non-pecuniary for our councillors, has oftentimes rendered them ineffective. What we are experiencing that both our councillors do not take part at community board table regarding anything that is going to a council meeting. They then do not speak on our behalf at the council table, otherwise they cannot vote. We never used to have this problem. Our community board councillors used to participate in the conversation and in voting, so we knew what their position was at that time. They then sat at the council table and voted there, ideally the same way as the community board. Now we have no idea if they are going to support us or not, as they are not allowed to take part in the discussion. We cannot call on their knowledge or expertise. If our councillors are there to advocate and sell the community board's wishes or support us, how do they do this without having a conflict of interest at some point in the process? I'd be interested to see if Councillor Monty and Councillor Phil have had the same experience as what our councillors have had. We are proposing to have a meeting with Mayor Susan, our CEO Steph, and the chairs of the committees to come up with an effective solution. I have not raised this with Cambridge. I had a brief discussion just now. But if they too are experiencing some similar frustrations, then we welcome them to join us. So I do hope that this is an opportunity where we get to find a way for the community board councillors to be able to provide their perspectives on various topics and be allowed to speak freely on behalf of the community board without it being a perceived conflict of interest. My second point is just a little harder. I, along with my community board, came into this term with a sense of excitement that things were going to change, that the community board was going to have the opportunity to help shape our community and be listened to. The first recommendation from the Stephen Finlay report says the state and relevance of community boards needs to increase so that council can see value proposition of participative democracy in action. Unfortunately, in our opinion, this has not been the case, with the majority of our advocacy on behalf of our community being dismissed, delayed, or just ignored. When you have been elected to represent the interest of your community, it is a hard pill to swallow to know they believe you have their back and you don't deliver. To continually front up and say, sorry, we tried, we failed, is frustrating and at times demoralising. This is our community and we should have a say in what we want, not to settle for what someone else thinks is best for us. When this is our lived experience of being a board member, is it even possible to stand with hand on heart and tell people, stand for the community board? It is really rewarding and you will be contributing to your community. With elections fast approaching, none of the current community board has indicated they will definitely stand again at this stage. What does that tell you? I hope they do, as they have gained knowledge and experience to carry into another term. However, when you have people who are basically volunteers, they need to get something out of what they are doing, so they are inspired, feel valued, and know they have made a difference. We still believe that the vision Dr. Stephen Finlay has for our community boards can be accomplished. We are willing to work with you, but we need to come up with a better way to be effective. I'd like to thank my community board for their support and continued dedication to trying to fulfil the wishes of our community. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. Tēnā rawa atu katoa.
Kia ora, Ange. Does anybody have any questions for Ange in respect of her report? Claire.
Thanks, Ange. Really appreciate you coming along here and being courageous in raising those points. Knowing what was covered in Dr. Stephen Finlay's report, you know, you're right in that he did say that, you know, the relevance of the community board should be raised and, you know, I suppose delegations changed and things like that. So I understood that there has been, you know, a group that's been working with you that's, you know, there was some sort of Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Mm.
And
So
so,
we haven't met
You
for
haven't-
some
haven't been
time,
meeting
not
with
for
them?
some time.
yeah,
But
yeah.
people have been busy, I appreciate that, and there's been a lot on people's plate with LTP and Water's Done Well, so I do appreciate that. However, it hasn't happened for quite some time.
Oh, yeah, well, it's good to understand that actually, because I'm not part of that group and so I didn't know, what was going. And I can see how the focus turned to the LTP actually. Yeah, that's been pretty much all consuming. Yeah, and so I was just going to take this opportunity to ask whether or not there were any particular ways that you had considered that we could raise the relevance of the community board, or something that could have been fed through that PSG, to put, like delegations in place, or a changed approach.
There's a couple of ideas. One is around where we sit. So, we often get told, we're supposed to be governance, but really you guys are ultimately governance. And yes, we do and should wear that hat to a degree. But as a community board, I believe we need to be involved a little bit further down the chain. And so an example that I can think of would be, for example, around the Kihikihi Te Ara Rimu cycleway. So we went into that with a draft plan, which is high level, get that, understand that completely, with a little line on it. At no point until that was starting to be built did we know that it actually wasn't a shared pathway, like all the information leading up to it. I actually brought along 3, and I have one other one, but I couldn't find it, different documents that refer to the pathway that was going out at Kihikihi as a shared pathway. So I believe that the community board we believe that we could be more effective if we could have more input into actually what the finished product is going to be. And I believe that some of the angst that's happened out there possibly could have been avoided, because that's where we are. We are more at the grassroots. We're out there, we're elected members and our heads roll based on that, and other things that are happening in the community. So we're hearing the things, and we've been elected to stick up for the things that we want or we don't want. And I've said this before, we've got this disconnect between, what might be best practice, and I get that, we want the best for our community, but sometimes it's not what we want. And we feel that we're not being heard. The community feels you're not being heard. You recall right back at Memorial Park time, and I've quoted this a number of times, sitting outside places and having people come up to me, and I'm trying to encourage them to take part. What's the point? They don't listen to us anyway. We were elected to support and try and get that sentiment to say, please listen. Our community's not happy. We're not happy. But it's a process. It's the way that it's done. And, it'd be awesome to see some change.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible in that way.
Yeah, and look, the examples you've given actually, Ange, that stuff that's been raised previously, and yeah, I think that we understand your point actually on that. I suppose I'm trying to focus on future actions. Over to you, Madam.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. It would be helpful if we could kind of limit our discussion, I guess, to your report. I'd have to say from my perspective, it would have been helpful to have understood a lot of your concerns more deeply prior to this meeting. I think we've only had the one meeting since I've been Mayor, Ange, so I really look forward to being able to get a broader grasp around what your concerns are, and to be able to perhaps bridge what you perceive as a gap between the community board and council and the organisation. I had the sense that the 2.0 work was tracking pretty well. So it's news to me that it seems to have fallen off a cliff from your perspective. So look, I will ask Dale-Marie had a question.
Probably more of a comment really, and ka nui te mihi kia koe, Ange. I tai mai koe I tō ripoata I te ata nei. Your frustrations, I hear them, I see you, I listen to you. They are the same frustrations we have as Māori when it comes to representation and on 101 things around here. And as an Indigenous person who deals with a us-them culture all the time, that's what I can hear is coming out of what you're saying to us today. What I don't understand though, Ange, is that we have two really well-functioning community boards and one is just so diversely different to the other. And I know I've raised this before with you around how we function some of the stuff because I feel that you and I have similar traits. We take some stuff on really emotionally because we're that passionate about it. But actually, I love to look at Jo and see how Jo doesn't take home half the crap that she has to deal with like you do at that chair level. And I see Elise sitting next to her at the same breath. So I want to reach out to you and say to you, my friend, because I've become hardened in this last 18 months, 2 years that I've been sitting here, don't take it on as emotionally, please. Because we need you and your energy to keep advocating. And I don't say that in a mean or a derogative way. I say this from one strong woman to another one. We need you, don't walk away from the space, because that's what I heard from you as well. Kia kaha taku hua. Kia kaha koe te tuakana I tai mai, because you've worked this space a lot longer than I have, and I appreciate you here in this space. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, Dale-Marie. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale-Marie. Liz?
Yeah. I can't imagine it was very easy for you to come in and say that this morning, Ange. So look, I'm just going to say I appreciate your honesty. This has not been an easy term. You know, a lot of us understand that and appreciate the, you know, the hardship that I guess and the projects that have not necessarily, you know, gone as smoothly as what we've seen in the past. So all I can do as Deputy Mayor is say, I hear you. As the leadership team, I'm imploring those around this table who are in leadership positions, let's step ourselves up a wee bit in this space and try and give you more support. I think that's what you're really asking for. And if there's anything else that we can do, please just reach out. But I think we need to take these projects one by one. I don't think it's there's no simple solution here. There's no doubt that the PCG group could be meeting more regularly. But if I'd like to look at the projects that you've talked about, obviously I've been close to Memorial Park. I feel like we have made progress. I think that is probably, I'm hoping, a success story. We're not there yet, but we will inch our way there, Ange, you and I, we will get there. And sometimes it has to take a little bit more time. Sometimes that's just where this needs to be. The other projects I'm probably not as involved in, but I know that as collectively we want to be there and we want to see the successes as you do. So let's just try to work together a little bit closer, eh?
Kia ora. Thanks, Liz.
So does anybody else have any further questions for Ange in respect of her report? Mike?
Thank you through the chair. Yeah, Ange, hey, thank you. Just acknowledge what the other speakers have said also, but hey, just picking up on your point about the councillors that sit, you know, whoever the councillors are that sit on the board. You know, I guess the frustration of where you're sitting. I'm looking forward to that meeting happening that's been set up and getting the results, because it just seems there's something wrong. You know, you guys are probably sitting there going, there's something wrong too, you know, like there's frustration, I'm sure, everywhere. And the system, I can sort of see it too. I mean, there's times obviously where public excluded stuff, these guys can't talk, guys or girls, whoever it is, can't, that's different. But this whole conflict of interest thing, I agree, the system from the outside seems a little bit, I don't know if it's broken, but it's not right. And I'm sure there is someone with brains far greater than mine that can get us through this, that can help out here. So it will be good to actually get how that is fixed back to this table. I really want to know how it's resolved. Yeah, cheers. But hey, thank you for your work. And like Dale-Marie said, you know, I think I've talked to you before, this job can suck a lot out of you. And particularly in that, you know, Joe's been in the chair, three of us have been in that chair role in this room, and it can be pretty absorbing. So I acknowledge the work and the mahi and just where you're at, because she's a roller coaster.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. And I just want to clarify, I do understand the why behind the conflict of interest and how it works. Susan and I talked about it last night at our community, Waipa Community Trust meeting. And I get the why behind it, but at the same time, if we practice it to the letter of the law, there are times in a small community where it's like having a noose around your neck. And so it would be great to find a way that we can still be within the boundaries of the legislation, but kind of, you know, like weave around it a little bit to enable us, our councillors, to be able to support the different community groups and have that, be able to share that perspective at the various tables, whether it's a committee, council or community board. But kia ora, thank you.
Thanks, Ange. Final question, I think, by Monty here, please.
Look, it's not really a question. It's a comment on this point. When I first got on the Cambridge Community Board, I thought it was really odd that there were councillors there. And we went through the first governance review back then, and I sort of voiced it then. I thought it would be better if a community board was just a clean representative group that was autonomous. Then in the latest governance review, we kind of really didn't get into that. But I think I've got to be honest, my view probably hasn't changed, because now I'm sitting on the Cambridge Community Board as a councillor. I don't feel like a full member, I've got to be honest. I actually feel like I sit there more as an advisor. And when we next do a governance review, that maybe is an idea that we explore, because I still think that the linkage between the community boards and council is really important, and that can be facilitated by a councillor sitting there, both acting as listener and an advisor to smooth it out. But yeah, the sort of slight hybrid model we got right at the moment, I'm not sure is optimal. So I'll save those ideas for the next governance review, but I hear you.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
thanks,
always,
Monty.
yeah, there's always been a real awkwardness of those roles. I mean, I've been in that position too when I was the councillor for then Kakapuku ward. So look, it was a very unclear role, I guess, and whether you served as a conduit between the community board and the organisation, gave insights and intel, but nevertheless absented yourself from substantive discussion. It was always a very odd place to sit, but I haven't obviously been in that position for some time, but by all means, it's definitely a piece that we need to iron out and get some clarity around those roles and positions, and where the edges of involvement start and end. And but it's pretty well established, of course, the law and the limitations around conflicts of interest and rationale behind all of that. But how does that look and play, I guess, is something that we probably need to do some more work on, so that those people that sit on those boards, at the very least, on behalf of council, can actually have an effective role and have a meaningful role around those boards. So I totally acknowledge your frustration with that, because you and I know from sitting here all those years that we shared it at that time. So if we can perhaps turn our mind to staff having a bit of a look into that, it would be really helpful and maybe alleviate the concerns you have in that space. But look, thank you for your report, Ange. Really appreciate your passion, your hours, and dedication given to our community, and in fact all your members. I know that you've all got certain interests and specialties in certain areas, which that you all fulfill really admirably. So thank you for your report. There's a lot in there, and yeah, thank you very much for coming and seeing us today. Take care. Thanks, Ange.
Thank you.
Now, can I invite Joe and Elise to the to the table. Good morning, ladies. Lovely to see you both.
Morena tātou, Me Susan, councillors and Te Kanohi and staff. Thank you for having us. Due to our time limitations, we're not going to speak too closely to our report. Rather, we would like to talk about two particular items that are front of mind for the Community Board at the moment, which is the Cambridge Library and Cambridge Connections. But I also did want to briefly mention that last time we were here, Councillor Pettit asked us about our Community Board Awards, and we're happy to say that we are well on our way to organising a Community Board Awards evening at the end of the year. We will be honouring particular members of our community, but I will keep in touch with you over that. But I'll hand over to Lise now for the library.
Thank you, Joe. Morena, everyone. Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and present to you. We really appreciate these opportunities to be in front of you and speak to our strategic priorities and our goals as a board. And once again, we'd like to bring your attention to the Cambridge Library. Firstly, I'd like to say a really big thank you to our staff in our library, who, as you'll soon see when we run through some statistics, are doing a really wonderful job of ensuring that our community can access great books, transformative support, and amazing programs that make the library such an important part of our community. And they're doing that in a pretty compromised environment, as we all know. So just a huge thank you and congratulations to them for the good work they're doing. Now, the Cambridge Community Board absolutely acknowledges the really challenging financial environment that Waipā District Council is in at the moment. We understand that that gold standard solution of a brand new library and community hub may not be on the ticket right now. Nonetheless, we feel it's important for us to once more place this in front of you as having an urgent need for an innovative solution to the spatial constraints that this library is experiencing. If you've been there since we last visited 6 months ago, you will know that the growing collection of books continues to grow across the floor. You'll know that actually safely navigating your way around that library is increasingly difficult, particularly if you require mobility aids or you have a child in a pram. You'll also know that if there's a program running in the library, then you really can't access a vast collection of the library while that program is running. But before I go any further, let's take a look at some statistics. We have a slide to put up in front of you. So just running through a few key points. So on the first day that Cambridge Library opened after the holidays, they issued 3,000 books. Te Awamutu on that same day issued 1,500. During that first partial week back, it wasn't a full 6-day opening period, Cambridge issued 8,000 books. Te Awamutu Library issued 4,000. A normal full week of issues for Cambridge is between, as you can see, 5,500 to 6,500 books. Te Awamutu, just around half that. And at the end of January, things were looking really positive in our library, with issues and visitor numbers increasing compared to the same time last year. Once again, nearly 200,000 issues for Cambridge per annum compared to around 100,000 in Te Awamutu. And the first Wriggle and Rhyme, arguably the most important event on the Cambridge library calendar, was the Wriggle and Rhyme, which had 89 attendees. I'm not sure if you've been in that child's area recently, but 89 is astronomical for the space that there is. And the reason we really wanted to bring these to your attention was, what a good news story. Our library is a really popular asset for our community. It is well loved, it is well used, and our staff are doing a great job. But the reason I've compared this to Te Awamutu is because when you look at that last point, at the square meterage available for that service, it doesn't really stack up. And we knew that it was smaller, but when I got the statistic, it was significantly smaller compared to Te Awamutu than I imagined. And it's very difficult to marry those two things, how hard our library is working in such a small space. So, our town is growing. Placemaking continues to be critical for how this town develops. The pressure on our library is going to continue to increase, and if action is not taken in the short term, not the medium term, not the long term, the solutions are only going to get more expensive, more difficult. When you look back at the library feasibility study timelines, they presented a gold standard solution, which we know is off the table. But if you followed that gold standard solution from land acquisition to planning and construction, by the time that library was operational, it would still only meet service delivery targets for a short number of years. It wasn't a 20-year solution still. So the more we kick this can down the road, the more difficult it's going to get to deliver the service to our community that they deserve. My point is, timely investment in this solution is critical. We know our community loves the library. We see it in the stats. We saw it in our community engagement that we did this term. And we understand that there's no budget currently for an entire new centre, or certainly for the addition of a community hub. But respect Mayor Susan and councillors, I urge you to continue to place the library as one of your priorities for the well-being of our community. I urge you to take an innovative and creative problem-solving approach to this issue. You know, it was a disappointment when we missed out on that Bunnings building a couple of years ago, but it's still sitting there. Are there solutions that are in our town right now that we can capitalise on? You know, there are bigger brains than mine. I love what you said there, Mike. Bigger brains than mine that can solve this problem. Maybe it's not a whole new centre. Maybe it's a little bit more space. There is a way to find our way through this. So I urge you to prioritise the Cambridge Library as a critical project that requires a timely solution, a project that will serve our community, all people in our community, for many years to come.
Thanks, Elise. Right, Cambridge Connections, thank you. One of the most important roles, as you know, of our community board is to communicate to council on behalf of residents. And what we are hearing loud and clear is that the Cambridge Connections project reset is taking too long. And because we work in close partnership with you, something that we are really grateful for, we understand the complex projects that Waipawa District Council is currently having. Not only do we have a great new CE, but the water reforms, one of the most important and involved pieces of work, is currently being undertaken. And then as well as working those water reform changes into another complex project, the long-term plan. And we understand that all hands are on deck for that. But what I respectfully want to communicate to you is that the public doesn't understand that. And many people in our community don't even know that water reforms are taking place. All they know is they're sitting in their car, Cambridge is becoming more congested, they can't move anywhere, maybe they're living in the blue blob and they want to make decisions about their home and they don't know how to do that. But they also remember that a year ago, a project was launched and now it's paused. And the apology over things that could have done better was a really commendable step, and it went a really long way with the community. But that apology was a year ago. And we really believe there is not enough information out there on what is happening. And we believe that the community is in the dark on where this project is heading. If there are delays due to other projects, the community needs to know that. If there's a new project lead on the way, the community needs to know that. They should be alongside every development, good or bad, of this project. If you're a random person in the community and you want to know about Cambridge Connections and you Google it, maybe you don't follow Waipawa District Council on Facebook or you haven't read any media releases. Can we go back to that slide, Zoe? And you Google it, you come to this page. And this page has a timeline and it says project on pause, August 2024. And we ask that further updates when and where possible are given to the community, because we are still having, a year on, people come to our community board forums and ask us questions and seek information, and we have very little to tell them. And residents are asking other residents about what's happening. And we think it would be better if council was taking more of a lead on the storytelling of this project. And look, we get it. The need to take this project slowly and do it properly is crucial. But taking the community alongside every update is so important. So we're in it with you too. We want to be alongside this project every step of the way. And I think us doing our job of telling you how the Cambridge community are feeling about this project could be our most important role here. And we really appreciate your consideration on this. And thank you for hearing us. And we're really open to taking any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe and Elise. Yeah, and I appreciate your written report, and I also appreciate that you really only want to focus on the two issues and that were most critical, really effective use of your time and ours. So thank you for that. I'll address just firstly the issue around the Cambridge Library, and I really appreciate again your acknowledgement that of the financial landscape within which we rest. The both of you are completely across that, but just wanted to underline or accentuate that our current draft LTP does make some provision for operational funding to keep what we refer to around this table as our cornerstone projects alive, of which, of course, the new library is one of those. So I totally acknowledge the frustration that the users and the community have in terms of Cambridge Library as it currently rests, but we have allocated, as I say, that funding to continue to progress it, and albeit an operational level, so that when we hopefully reach a point where we are more financially capable to address it in a bigger long-term way. Really interesting observations around the projected gold standard and where it would sit. I'm really quite keen to take that offline and have some discussions with you both if that is something you're interested in taking up. Now, I have Roger, and I wanted to see if Monty wanted to address anything in terms of the Cambridge Connections piece, and then I'll go to Steph. Roger.
Yes, thank you very much, Joe and Elise, through you, Madam Chair. I was going to talk about the library, but first of all, if I can comment on Cambridge Connections and give you the assurance that the concerns that you have stated there are shared very much by the 4 Cambridge councillors, and they have been voicing their concerns over the last couple of months to get information back out in the community. And I'd just like to emphasize that the voice has been said, not in public sessions, but in other sessions, to try and get information out in the community, because I do believe they deserve to know. And I agree with you. It is the biggest issue facing Cambridge today. And I want to emphasize that, and there is an urgent need for that information. So going back...
Sorry, Roger, can I just interrupt just for a moment there? That's actually a concern shared by all the councillors. That's a district-wide significant project. So I appreciate that, that the Cambridge councillors may indeed have a specific escalated concern, but it's a shared concern around this table because it is a Waipā District Council district-wide project.
I acknowledge that,
so
Madam Chair.
Just wanted to note that.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
acknowledge
Roger.
that, Madam Chair, but it's of greater concern to those people who live in Cambridge. And I think that that has to be acknowledged.
I'll support Roger on that.
So thank you, Madam Chair. The library is a challenge. Obviously, you've hit the nail on the head that council doesn't have the resources to address that issue. However, there is, if you like, a light at the end of the tunnel if the Three Waters project does enable capital differentiation between waters and other community aspects. And I think that if the timeline follows, which it should do, hopefully, by July the 1st next year, then that may see that window open up. But what I'd be very pleased to hear about, and I'm sure we on council would like to, and I see Sally over there, but whether there has been discussion about what effective measures could be invested in to enable a better service to the community, because it's really that service to the community of our existing library that we have a challenge with until we can afford the gold medal option of replacing it. So really would be interested in looking and discussing what options there are there that we can effectively meet some of those challenges and improve the level of service.
And I think what's key there, Roger, thank you for your comments on that, is that because that gold standard one is unaffordable at this stage, what are those smaller shifts that we can do to increase that square meterage that's available, because the service delivery in terms of getting those books to people and creating a safe environment is working well, but it's just working in an environment that's too small. So it's, I don't know, is it a container, you know, like for the children's collection? Is it a wing in another building where part of the collection goes? I'm not sure what the right solution is, but I think it's thinking creatively beyond that skin of the current building and finding an affordable option in the short term while we wait for those other spaces, and potentially, Mayor Susan, that operational funding will have the time and space to investigate some of those solutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise. Monty, did you have something you wanted to add at all? Otherwise, I'll go to Steve.
Oh, look, the only thing I've got to add is that I'm keener than anyone to see the Cambridge Connections reset properly start, particularly because I have to front the community in the community board meetings, and it is, I'm very much looking forward to being able to be fronting the reset rather than fronting the pause.
Yeah, a bit like you, Monty, I'm pretty keen to progress it myself, along with everybody else around the table. Steph, I wonder if I could invite you perhaps to add a little further maybe to the Cambridge Connections piece of work. I know there's been a lot of work going on and attention paid to this. Are you able to provide us with any update in that area?
Good morning, Susan, and good morning, councillors. Morning, ladies. It's strange when you are online, as you probably know, Joe, because you actually see the back of heads rather than people's faces for the guest speakers, which is slightly odd. So, but morena koroa, and I just want to acknowledge Ange as well for her update on the Te Awamutu Cambridge, the Te Awamutu Community Board. So, thanks for both. I know these two projects are so dearly important to Cambridge, and I'm a regular user of the library as well. So, I think that there is definitely an opportunity to think about what we can do in the short term and do something innovative. I know other towns have done that while they've had less than ideal situations as well. So absolutely up for that conversation with my team, and I've just reached out to them, not because it hasn't been on the radar, but just to make sure that we keep that work happening in the background. Those stats that you referred to are amazing, aren't they? So the use of it, the need for those services are well established and well enjoyed. But yeah, it's a lot of people in a very small place. So and I feel for our staff, and thank you for acknowledging the staff. I really appreciate that. The Cambridge Connections, Joe, I know we talk regularly about this, and you're a fantastic advocate for not only the community board, but the community in terms of needing this information. And certainly wherever I go in Cambridge at public meetings, people are asking. We're not far away. We've had to do the reset internally. It sounds like bureaucratic speak, but it takes quite a bit to sit and rethink about a team. We're resetting that internally, so it's a whole of organisation approach. It's going to involve different people with a different skill sets, in addition to the people who made a huge contribution to that in the first part of that project. We're not far away from being able to come out publicly and talk about what that's going to look like and who that is. These things have just taken time, and look, I'm just going to own it, just being a new CE and coming up to speed with all of these issues and wanting to get the things right, not to rush, but sometimes you need to slow down to speed up, and getting the right people in place, attracting the right program director for the Cambridge Connections program has taken just a little bit longer than I'd expected, but we're not far away from that. And you can appreciate from my perspective, we want to know that we've got a team out there that you and the community board have got confidence in, that the councillors have got confidence in, and we can really start to reset not only the community engagement process, but the assumptions we've made in that project, the methodologies, the modelling for future Cambridge, the broader transport connections picture, etc. So it's not just about the blue blob, it's about that broader picture for transport connectivity in Cambridge. So I hear your frustration, and I just want to say that you've been a great advocate for that, and obviously our team in behind providing information for the Cambridge Community Board meetings as required. So I really appreciate you putting up the piece on the screen about the website, and I've literally reached out to Lisa while we've been online and said, look, we can definitely improve that, and as a starting point, just get some better information upon our website. So thanks for highlighting that today, Joe. I really appreciate it, and I hear your message. The councillors are very strong advocates of this, and I feel their strong advocacy for it, as Councillor Roger and Monty and the Mayor have said too. So it's no, there's no deliberate slowdown. We're working at pace to get this reset, and as I say, it's a matter of a week or two, not further months, before I can come out and give you some more information. And that does involve, as I say, all those components of the project. So thank you for coming in today, to you both. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you. Thank you, Steph. Philip, do you have a question?
Not a question, just a quick statement about the library and things like that. So thanks for.
Ideally, it'd be questions, because it's the point. No questions for the paper. I'm just sitting here reflecting on those numbers, and whoever said that books and printed word is dead, eh? That was a misjudge, that one, certainly in Cambridge. Any other questions for these ladies in respect to their report regards the activities? No? Sorry, Del Marie.
Tēnā kōrua, e mihi nui kia kōrua i taimai nei. Me tō ripuata, me te kōrero te hapore. I'm, as one of the Cambridge wards as well, being the Māori ward who stretches across the whole district, some of the resounding feedback that I'm getting from particularly the Māori constituency that may not be represented in this conversation. Cambridge Connections isn't big for them. Local water done well. They're actually quite up the know in it, because Māori are forefront in that space. They do remember who advocated against Three Waters in their local government running. So they are looking back at those people to inform the community around that stuff. But they've actually said to me, my constituents, Māori, have said to me, housing, poverty and employment are the three biggest things. And I know that that doesn't feature in the library, that doesn't feature around the Blue Blob and the Cambridge Connection stuff. And it's not with any of the other stuff that we've mentioned today. But it does give me a good reflection on how, I suppose, Māori and their whakaaro, their visions and their conversations might not be just as represented by my other councillors and within the community board space at the moment. So I just thought I'd raise that. I don't have a question, but I do want to ask. One thing is, there's how many Māori on your board? One, eh? That's Sue.
Sue has, yeah.
Sue's from
Whatever.
Ngaitahu? Yeah. All right, that's here. I just wanted to check with that. Okay, thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thanks, Elmarie.
Kia ora, thank you.
May I just,
Question?
it is a question, yes. And we heard from Ange that she's unsure how many of her current elected members are standing again. And she expressed doubt that many of them would. What's the situation with the Cambridge board? And should we perhaps be making some form of promotion for some other people to put their names forward?
I would like to take you back 6 years when a mate of mine said, do you want to go on the Cambridge Community Board with me? And I was like, okay. And we put ourselves forward. 6 years later, I'm the chair, she's the deputy. Democracy is working. People in the community will step up. We've done a good job and others will do a good job.
You've done a marvellous job,
Thank you.
Joe and Elise and all of your board. So I just encourage others to come along and take on the good work that you've achieved.
Right. Andrew, do you have a question?
So what I've heard all this morning so far is growing pains. Only to be expected, I guess. And, you know, we're trying to look at it from an overall point of view, but what's happening is you've got to get one thing squashed in and psh, she's bursting out the other side. So, you know, that's a real challenge that's ongoing, I guess, for council and everyone in it. The library, yeah, my understanding is Te Awamutu Library is inadequate in terms of national standards for space, so Cambridge is absolutely, you know, and I really do feel for both the users and the staff. It's a huge challenge. Yeah, so it was just a comment, not really a question. Sorry, Susan.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Good context to sort of reground our kind of thinking. Acknowledge the concerns that people have around the perceived inability of, so call it the roading network or the cycleways or the library or any of the work that we do to actually meet the needs or perceived needs of the community. But I guess on balance, this is a high growth council, and I had the great fortune of being in part of a LGNZ High Growth Council discussion recently, and I asked staff to pull together some data for me. And housing affordability, a whole bunch of issues in our district are really quite challenging out there. So whilst I acknowledge these other issues exist, and I'm certainly by no means belittling them, I think there are some really critical issues that relate to growth that perhaps deserve a little bit more attention at times. And look, to Councillor Rogers' point when we opened this meeting about the lovely week had just at Māori, I had the great fortune being around a whole bunch of people from outside our district for the better part of this last week, and they were all just singing the praises of this region. People are coming here for a reason. You know, it's great living. So appreciate there are pinch points, appreciate people want things done, but I think if we just take a little bit of a step back and take a broader horizon, view of where we live, the people we live with and the place that we enjoy, we're pretty blessed really. And really excited to have progressive bunch of and passionate elected members and executive and organisation to try and fulfil those aspirations, right? I mean, there are a lot of places around the country and the planet, indeed the planet, where you don't have as much goodwill and intelligence and passion as we're fortunate to have here. So look, thank you ladies for your ongoing work and presenting it so well, and thank you. Oh, Andrew snuck away. So look, on the basis that there are no further questions of these two, I'll draw out. Roger, did you have a question? Oh, you're happy to, okay. We have a recommendation to receive both of those reports in our agendas there at page 18. Roger has moved that for me. Dale Marie will second that. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, ladies. Keep up the great work. It's much appreciated. Now, the next item is the approval of our draft economic wellbeing strategy and supporting information for public engagement. We have taking the stage. Could I just call the meeting to order, please? Please. Roger, thank you. Kirsty, Joy and Amber. Good morning, ladies. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, councillors. Nice to see you. It's great to be able to present to you today the draft economic wellbeing strategy, the implementation plan, summary feedback document and the feedback form for your approval for public engagement and feedback. The journey to this point has been a long one, starting in 2022, and there's still a way to go, but regardless, today is an important milestone. COVID, prioritisation of the development and adoption of Ahuaki as our key strategic planning document, challenges and timing for the delivery of the 2024-34 and the 2025 to 34 LTPs, plus the Water Services Delivery Program have all impacted on the progression of the strategy. Economic wellbeing was one of the themes in our partner, stakeholder and community engagement for Ahuaki during 2023, and the economic wellbeing strategy was also part of the implementation plan that was formally consulted on for Ahuaki in 2024. We have captured all that feedback, as well as that received from an elected member workshop held on the 12th of February this year. And you can see those tracked changes in the documents in front of you today. I do just want to quickly comment further on the proposed timings for public engagement and feedback. In the report, these are noted as being subject to long-term plan and water services delivery consultation timeframes, which are still to be determined. So we will wait until these more important conversations with our community are held. Members will also recall at the workshop in February that we discussed the possibility of combining engagement with that of a draft event strategy, which is still the intent. Regardless of when the engagement will be, it was considered prudent to get these documents in front of you today and approved so that we can be ready to go as soon as we're able to push the button. So I will take the report as read and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy. Any questions for Joy, Kirsty or Amber in respect to their report regards this much awaited piece of strategic work? Anybody? No, we did have this at I'm trying to remember when we last spoke about it. It was certainly very well received at the time. Roger.
Yes, thanks, Joy. Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks for bringing this report to us. Really makes interesting reading, doesn't it? Now, when you say for public engagement, is that a consultation exercise?
So through the chair, we're not proposing a special consultative procedure pursuant to the Local Government Act. The reason being, we're suggesting a more informal engagement approach. As Joy has touched on in presenting the opening to this report, there has been previous engagement with the community through stakeholder workshops that were held at the very commencement of this project, through the informal engagement for Ahuaki Waipa Community Spatial Plan, and then more recently through the formal consultation process for that. So the intention is an informal engagement approach.
Okay, so just continuing on from that, if I may. So if there are any feedbacks from the community regarding the content, will they be considered, or are we seeing the final version?
Through the chair, when we go out to the community to engage, we are wanting to connect with the community and invite feedback. So absolutely, that would be received, collated, analysed, and then incorporated within a revised document that we would present to the council for approval.
So we will still have deliberation on any of those suggested items of feedback from the community?
Through the chair, we're not proposing hearings, but there would be, the report would be presented to elected members for decision making. So we would anticipate that there would be some changes to the document. Otherwise, there would be no point in going out for engagement.
You are anticipating that some
Thank you.
changes, because it would be really interesting to see. There has been a slight change in central government culture about walking and cycling being the preferred mode of transport, and whether we should in fact reflect a similar lack of emphasis on walking and cycling, and a realization that cars are probably still going to be with us for the next 20, 25 years. And I think that's a point that really should be considered.
I think the point of this, Roger, is that this is a strategy document which lasts longitudinally. Governments may come and go, but I guess we're talking about establishing a strategic vision of what we want for the district, irrespective of who's in Wellington. And I think it's generally well accepted that modal shift at whatever pace we do or don't, at whatever pace, is going to be a reality, in fact, a necessity, because we simply, with a growing population, can't all be driving cars to all get to the same space. I think there have been some really great success stories, particularly in Cambridge, in respect to the cycleway. So I appreciate and acknowledge your point around this government having a different emphasis as such, which is their prerogative. And but I think longitudinally we need to look at this as well, as a strategic document that passes more than just 3 yearly cycles.
If I could respond to that as well, Madam Chair. I think, yes, this is a strategic document, and there is a statement in there that walking and cycling is the preferred mode of transport. And we've just got Cambridge Connections, which is another strategic document about to start. And I'm just concerned that, again, the emphasis that's in this strategic document may be reflected totally in Cambridge Connections, which I think would be contradictive.
Yeah, maybe it's a matter of emphasis. So good catch there, Roger. Any questions? Oh, Philip, and then Philip, then Mike.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for your report. I'll touch on what I was going to comment on in a minute, but yeah, just with the walking and cycling, we've got to look at all modes of transport too, because not everyone wants to or can go on biking and walking and things too. But just going on to your report here on page 43, it says, how do we get here? And community assets, and we've just seen library stats, and we see it in our quarterly reports on libraries and pools, and the use of those and the demand for those has just been so amazing. But also, I've had some examples of parks and reserves recently with Māori Cup and the economic feel-good factor, and then the Autumn Festival on Sunday. The feel in the main street there in the centre there in Cambridge on Sunday was just phenomenal. Everyone out there enjoying themselves with families and the community, and the sunshine was amazing. So it's really, that's all economic well-being, or it's well-being plus economic well-being. So yeah, that's really good seeing all that. So thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Yeah, thank you both for your report. I'm on page 45. Hey, and just Māori economy. I'm assuming the stats there are national sort of stats in terms of forestry, land production. Yeah. Is there any chance of getting anything more waipa, or is that sort of difficult to get? Is my first question.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Certainly we can reach out to get more detailed stats. We do have difficulty alongside the rest of the country in actually trying to quantify the Māori economy, and there's been a lot of work done in this space in the last couple of years. And Ministry of Business Innovation and Entrepreneurship, as well as, you know, companies like Infometrics, have been really putting a lot of resources into clearly identifying. Probably 5 years ago, I would have, you know, if you'd asked me the question, I would have said, no, we wouldn't have had a chance. But certainly, and in fact, just recently, I was reading a report that's just been recently released with some data that's as recent as 2023. So certainly we'll be able to get some waipa specific information there.
Right, that's fantastic. I wasn't sure whether you could. Yeah, I think if we had something like that, it would be a really good baseline maybe for and Dale Marie might comment, or Bill, around getting a hui together, because, you know, iwi a lot of iwi now are looking for ways they can invest in their own community, but also the greater community, and not just the tourism, but, you know, all these things here are far from just tourism. I guess waipa offers a whole lot. So we've talked about some things, but it could be the catalyst of having some good data to start a decent hui of that whole partnership around trying to be more productive together, I guess. Thank you.
Bill.
Thanks, Liz. Kia ora koutou. I'm sort of picking up a little bit on what Mike was raising, because homes and housing become a key component, especially in terms of for Māori, for the economy and their well-being, or our well-being, I should say. And what I haven't seen is that is where we're up to with the papakainga. our policy seems to be stagnant and sitting. And I know I can understand to some degree why that is, because the government is doing something on it, and it would save us, I think, consultation's about $60,000, not to have to go into consultation on it. But, you know, that's a key driver in terms of local community housing Papakainga. We've got money that we're looking to spend, that we've been given, and we want to spend that on Papakainga, not separated residential homes. And so, you know, we're sitting waiting for that policy. And if the Crown's not going to be fast enough in doing that, then I'm going to go back and ask Waipa to remember its commitment to Māori in terms of Papakainga. When we took the Better Off funding amount, we said that we would push through the policy. I think we were about six, you know, we were hearing about things that were, you know, that are behind schedule. Well, this is one piece of your own policies that we're well behind schedule on. And I just, if I pick up on it, Mike, I know of another group that's looking to build Papakainga using the forestries that have been returned to us. And one of them was talking to me about how we could do that in the Waipa. They're quite keen to look at the Waipa as being a place for that to happen. But, you know, those sorts of things tie together. And once we've got homes, we've got people returning, we've got them returning from overseas to our whenua. There's all of those connections, and we're held up by local government not prioritising this piece of policy, and we're allowing them to do that by actually not pushing ahead ourselves on it. So I don't know if there's a question in that, but I've sort of trying to answer Mike's question at the same time. But yeah, if you could, well, maybe you've heard something more at a government level, or maybe Steph gone.
Yeah, no, Steph had to sneak away. Apologies, she's just in transit.
Or somebody
So-
might have heard something at a government level. This would be my question, Susan.
Yeah, so what I hear, Bill, is that you're wanting an update on where we're at in terms of Papakainga, because that unlocks a lot of this, right? So and I think Kirsty looks as though she's got her finger poised over the button with an answer.
Through the chair, acknowledge the points that you've made, Bill, in terms of the interconnectivity between housing and economy, and that's something that came through very strongly from our partnering with Mana Whenua and iwi in the development of Ahawaki. So acknowledge that, and I think in terms of that implementation plan, it does, I guess, draw the commonality between the economic wellbeing strategy and the work that we're doing in growth and the housing strategy. So thank you. With regard to Plan Change 23 Papakainga, you're probably aware that that work was well advanced. The provisions had been drafted. There had been engagement with Mana Whenua, iwi, Ngā iwi tōpō Waipa. My understanding is that then with the central government advising that there would be policy direction out of Wellington, that there was a pause. Look, I don't know the current status of that piece of work, but I will undertake it as an action coming out of this meeting to follow up with our district growth and planning team and come back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty. Dale-Marie and then Monty. Questions?
I'm not sure if you knew this, Councillor Pettit, but I'm just going to whakanui this lady over here again, Joy. She actually put together a fantastic Puna Pākehī event with Waikato Tainui that we had in the chamber one morning. And so picking up on your comments and your commentary, but I do just have to say this because you know I'm that person at the table that has to say these things and remind us ethically, we've got to have representation at this table before we start talking partnerships in the economic sphere. Tēnā tātou.
That's how you're going to stay.
Kia ora, Dale-Marie. And obviously, was it Federation of Māori Authorities, great source of great information too and data. I'm sure that you're all over that, Joy. Monty.
Thanks. Look, I should have raised this at the workshop. I didn't. It's probably too late. I'm raising it now. Your draft implementation plan, page 71. The initial actions around understanding food security, how we can ensure our community has access to sufficient food at all times. That really kind of jarred with me, sitting under rural economic growth. I just didn't quite understand it. I didn't quite understand what it was meaning. And I didn't quite understand, sort of how it related to the rural economy directly. I mean, food security in our district has got a lot more to do with the supermarkets than it has with the rural economy. So just, I don't know, probably we can discuss this later maybe, but there's my point.
Yes, certainly, if we can take that discussion offline, because food security, surprisingly, in the Waikato as a whole, there's just recently a report being released about through Waikato Wellness Forum, and surprisingly, Waikato as a region as a whole is, in terms of food security, which is the ability of the region to supply the amount of food to support the population it has, we actually aren't producing enough food to support the region-wide district. And if you break that further down into Waipa and our ability, and I mean, to me, Waipa is, it is the food basket. Yeah, it's always been from day dot, you know. But we actually aren't producing enough food to support our own population here. And that was, to me, when I read that report last week, that was just an absolute eye-opener. We're producing plenty of food, but we're actually exporting it left, right and centre, to the point where we're not making sure that we've got enough left in our own pātaka for those days when, you know, we can't get food in. And when you combine that with the impacts of climate change, and this is kind of impacting, you know, when we have these massive events where roads get cut off, we need to make sure that we've got enough food in our community to keep ourselves well, so that we can have that resilience to get over the event. So yeah, those are pretty staggering things.
Okay, now that is a really great answer. And I wasn't getting that through this, okay?
Okay.
So that can be my bit of
Understand what you're
feedback.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I will come back to you and we'll have a, yeah, thank you.
It's that resilience piece, I think, isn't it? It's not so much that we are not producing enough. It's just that because we overperform, right? We punch above our weight, and that's in that state. But it's more about how we're exposed in terms of those high weather events, civil defence emergencies, and what does that mean in terms of our resilience to continue to feed ourselves. And I do recall, I've got to be honest, I'd never heard the words of food security until COVID. And I don't know that too many of us would have, unless you were knees deep in this sort of area. It sort of became the cessation of supply chains, I think, really put a huge highlight over the criticality of movement of food and availability and accessibility, I suppose. So it became really evident, obviously, under COVID. Marcus, question, and then Lou.
On page 51, it says there's 2 line companies servicing Waipa district. Doesn't Powerco service the right-hand side of the district as well? So there's actually 3 power companies?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, good pick up. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus. Lou.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Great report. I really enjoyed reading that. It's a lot of interesting information. A couple of things I wanted to raise with you. Just in page 40, you just said agree with retaining Hautapu as a key industrial area. I'd like to see that develop a bit bigger than that. Just agree with retaining key industrial areas. We've got Rukahia. We've got other areas that are quite large, and I think we need to do that. The anchor industries, I think, are very, very important. But the big thing I wanted to raise, and it was well answered with your previous question to Councillor Montgomery, was resilience. Having worked with civil defence, and it's not just food resilience. We've got to look at resilience across the whole spectrum. We're talking of having services that we need, and I'm talking of adequate services for all of our infrastructure. And have you been able to operate in emergencies or in the current economic climate where we're seeing the decline of the global economy? And that, I think, will continue in the near future anyway. So I believe that we need to look at resilience quite regularly, you know, as a part of being in a well-being infrastructure.
Philip, last question before we address the recommendation.
So I really with regarding food and things like that, I really support us supporting community organisations with community gardens and things like that. And the tree trusts in Cambridge are doing a great job with growing fruit trees up and down our green belts, and we need to encourage them to do more of that and provide, or if there's any land, to support them anyway, because there is a lot of food out there. And I actually once a week go around and collect food and put it in the sharing sheds the last couple of years too. So there is actually a lot of food out there, but we've got to support them as well with these other things. So thank you.
I said it was the last, but it's not quite. Andrew has a final question. Andrew.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing the feedback on this. Have we got a timeline for when we expect to?
Through the chair, just whilst we finalise the timing for delivery of consultation on the LTP and waters, this will follow that. So, yeah, thank you.
Just before the elections, all right?
That's the intention, yes.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be addressed. It's been a long time in the making, right? Excellent. Hey, look, I've just bring the discussion to an end there. On page 31, we have, and 32, a handful of recommendations to receive Joy's report, approve the draft economic wellbeing strategy and draft implementation plan with timing to be advised in terms of that public engagement and feedback, approve the strategy draft summary feedback document and the draft feedback form, and then over the page delegating to Kirsty the ability to make final edit and minor editorial changes. It's all very wordy. So those, I'm happy to move that from the chair because I'm really delighted to finally see this get here. Philip, were you seconding that for me? Excellent. Wonderful. Well, I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Great stuff. Thank you, team. Thank you, ladies. Really appreciate your work on that one. It has been a slow and long burn. Now we move on to public excluded matters. Not that there are many. So we have a resolution to exclude the public on page 87. The purposes are set out there. It's in respect to the public excluded minutes from a previous meeting. Philip, you will move. Andrew will second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.